Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel where we discuss all things having to do with sales and scaling and growing businesses. Listen, if you're in the high ticket sales space or you're considering getting into the high ticket sales space, this video, we're going to be discussing really the 3 different opportunities and how much realistically you can actually make in the high ticket sales space. So buckle in, take down some notes. We're going to be breaking this all down and giving you some clarity as to how this space actually works and actually looking at some numbers and discussing the real opportunities. Let's jump into the training. So let's really kind of break down what the opportunities are when it comes to the high ticket sales space. Now, listen, on other videos, I've talked about what the high ticket space is. We're talking about the digital marketing space where we're dealing with coaches, consultants, business services, where prospects are actually looking for the business's services and products, and you're just handling the sales component to it. I've done other videos where I go into more depth about what this actually is. So feel free to peruse the channel and check out some of those other videos. I really want to talk about the opportunities behind it. Now, there's really 3 different opportunities when it comes to high ticket sales and how to actually get involved and what business owners are looking for. The first one that all of them are looking for, and I would say, in fact, this is probably one of the biggest problems that most people in the digital marketing space have, and that is they're doing a poor job monetizing all of their data or their social engagement and generating additional appointments for their business. So this first opportunity would be more on the appointment setting side. Now, some sales organizations do multiple touch sales points where they'll do what's called a triage call prior to somebody going through an entire presentation and asking them to actually sign up for the program, or in other words, closing the deal. So there's really 3 opportunities. There's appointment setting, there's what I call triage calls, and then there's what would be considered a high ticket closer or somebody that actually is closing the deals. So I want to talk a little bit about the appointment setting opportunity and what realistically you can actually make as an appointment setter. Now, think of it like this. All of these business owners, whether you're a coach, consultant, digital marketer that's selling some sort of funnels or whatever it may be, all of these businesses have a lot of interactions. They have a lot of opt-ins. They have a lot of people that are actually engaging them on social media. The biggest problem that they have is they don't have either the time nor the talent to actually hire and train appointment setters that will actually engage, reach out to those people, have conversations that actually convert into getting that person to actually want to schedule a call for either a triage person or an actual closer. This is probably one of the biggest opportunities that there is if you're wanting to get into sales. Now, let me kind of break down the economics of how an appointment setter is actually paid. So first off, there's typically some sort of a base pay fee when it comes to doing appointment setting. Most businesses will pay an appointment setter around $1,000 per month. Typically, it's very commission oriented, but it's at least $1,000 per month just for them to actually engage and reach out to all of the leads or the prospects on social media that they just do not have the time to be able to do. I'm going to refer back to my notes here because I want to break down some numbers. So there's typically about $1,000 a month base pay fee. Now, typically for an appointment setter, they're oftentimes willing to pay at least 5% of the total commission. So let's use an analogy on, like, let's say the business is selling some sort of like $5,000 program, product, whatever it may be. An appointment setter is going to get 5% of that. So that's roughly about $250 per sell. Now, if that appointment setter is setting throughout a full day, at least 2 to 3 appointments per day, which isn't difficult, and there's a closing ratio of around 25%, which is completely doable. That's roughly 3 sales per week. If the person is generating, or the appointment setter is generating at least 3 appointments per 3 sales per week that actually end up closing, it's roughly about $1,000 per week in actual commission when it comes to with the actual base on top of that. So really, from an appointment setter standpoint, if you're following those metrics, generating 2 to 3 appointments, which is totally doable, really there isn't any reason why somebody couldn't make around $50,000 to $52,000 if you're brand new and it takes you some time to learn. Then you're going to obviously make less, but it's not one of those things that you're going to make $200,000 a year as an appointment setter. But for people, especially when it comes to people overseas that want to do appointment setting, oftentimes they're not even actually speaking with them. They're doing text messages, they're doing social outreach, they're engaging with people that are already engaging, Oftentimes an appointment setter is not actually physically talking to somebody on the phone. So I've found that people overseas love these kind of opportunities because it's sometimes difficult to get somebody here, just being completely candid, here in the States, that's willing to work all day reaching out to people. And oftentimes the work ethic isn't just that great. So outbound appointment setting, that's kind of the opportunity when it comes to the economics. Now, for somebody that's doing triage calls, this is somebody that's getting book scheduled calls on their calendar through either automation or through an appointment setter. So somebody that's actually appointment setting and also understands how to do triage calls can obviously make more money inside of the high ticket sales space. So let's say the business is set up to do a call, an official two-step sales process prior to setting it up to somebody that goes through an entire closing presentation. Now, if you look at some of the numbers, let's say that business has, let's say, a $10,000 offer. So they're fielding calls, they're fielding scheduled appointments, typically around 20 to 30 minutes is the max amount of time for a triage call. And let's say the business is selling a $10,000 offer. That means that they're roughly making about $500 for every deal that actually ends up closing. Now, a good account or a good business that you're actually working with should be able to provide you at least 4 to 5 appointments per day. Now, if you're setting 4 to 5 appointments, you should have at least a 50% set to close ratio, which means that if you're having 4 to 5 appointments per day, 50% of them should be being set up to a closer to go through a full presentation. That closer should maintain at least a 35% closing rate. On most accounts that I work with, because of that process, will generate or create a consistent at least 50 and 75% closing rate inside of those campaigns. But let's look at it conservative numbers, what you can actually make. So a 35% closing rate, that's roughly 4.2 deals per week. It's around $2,200 per week in commissions that you're actually making if you're really, really good at doing triage calls, okay? So that's kind of the triage call opportunity. Like I said, I'm not here to tell you that that's what you're going to make, and I'm not here to guarantee that somebody's going to hire you to be able to do that, but that's what the skill set does enable you to actually make as an effective triage call sales rep. Now, the third one is what we would consider somebody that's a high ticket closer or somebody that's actually doing the closing calls. There's a little bit better of an opportunity, obviously, with this because this is the individual that's going through the full presentation, handling any kind of objections, concerns, getting the person actually officially rolled, handling the financial component for that person. Typically, there's no base for this closer. They're 100% commission. They're typically splitting some of that commission with the person that set them up from a triage standpoint. But the good part is that they're handling more closing calls, okay? So typically for about 5 closing calls, and let's say their closing rate is just 25%, but they're getting at least a 10% commission, they should be able to, with that amount of closes, where they're closing at least, or they're getting at least 5 closing opportunities per week, realistically, they can be making anywhere between $5,000 and $7,000 per month in just commissions on a conservative level, depending on the business that you're working with. These aren't crazy numbers that are far out of reach. And if you reverse engineer those numbers, should be making anywhere between $20,000 and upwards of $25,000 per month as a talented high ticket closer. There's some accounts where you can make a lot more money. Sometimes accounts you can make a little bit less. But for people that are really, really good at closing, they look for those opportunities where they can be on back-to-back calls all day, closing deals on a regular basis, and really maximizing their commissions. So I want to give you some clarity and what the opportunity really actually looks for, just looking at some of the numbers. Hopefully you found this content helpful. If you have any questions or comments, as always, put them below. We'll try to get back with you as soon as possible and look forward to having you on another video. Cheers, guys.